Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this sim-based keynote speech section. I am Intien Wu from National Central University in Taiwan. It's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Kaushal Kumar BHAGAT. Dr. Kaushal Kumar BHAGAT is currently Assistant Professor in the Advanced Technology Department Center at the Indian Institute of Technology. He got his PhD degree in Taiwan because his outstanding research performance. In 2020, he received the APSCE Early Career Researcher Award from the Asia Pacific Society for Computers in Education. He's also an editorial board member of several very important international journals. Today, he is going to talk with us about game on leveraging the benefits of game-based learning in the digital age. Now, please join me in welcoming him. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Wu, and good morning and namaste from India. So let me just share my screen. Is it visible?
Good.
Okay. I would like to thank APSC for giving me opportunity to present my work about game-based learning. And I also, please accept my apologies because of my family commitment. I was not able to travel to Japan to present this talk. Today, I am going to take you to the history of games. I will discuss some of the very important aspects of games, specifically in the education sector. Then I am going to discuss some of the important elements of game. And at the end, I will show you 2 or 3 examples that we are working and we are developing game-based learning. Let us start. I think you might have seen that, the tiger cubs, they play in maybe National Geography Channel, or maybe if you have gone to some national parks. So you may have seen that, the tiger cubs, they play each other. Now the question arises that why do tiger cubs play, right? The answer is that, to prepare for hunting. So when we are talking about the play or games, what are the very important elements, right? It includes fun, it includes challenge and risk, because when they are playing, so they have the nails also, right? There is risk of injury, right? There is risk. Then social engagement, when they are familiar with their other cubs are playing, so they have some kind of social engagement with each other. These are very, very important, and most important is that emulation of reality. Sometimes when we are playing, so those things includes the emulation, what actually in the real world is going to happen, or what strategies that you are applying during the game that you can also apply in your real life also. Now, there are 2 important components are there, toys and games. Sometimes we mix it up with that. When we are talking about toys and games, they are different in nature. When you are playing, the toys, they don't have specific rules or challenges. But when we are playing a soccer game, right? So it has specific rules it has an objective, it has a challenge. So that includes about the game. So toys are basically different from, it could be the part of a game, but we cannot say toys as a game. Now, let me take you to the history of games. I believe that in this room, or people who are also online, they all like to play games. Maybe the nature of game are different. Some people may like action games, some people may like some games like cricket or football, some people may like puzzles, right? In the human history or civilization, games were very integral part. We have the history of games long back. If you see, now I'm just showing, this is one game, is Mancala. It is one of the oldest game in history. It is like 6000 BC. It was discovered in ancient Egypt. And that game has been played in many different cultures, regions throughout the history. The main objective of the game was to capture more stones. Here you can see the stones are there. Then your opponent, by strategically moving your own stones around the board. So it is also regarded as one of the famous strategy board game during that time. This is another game, the Royal Game of Europe. It was actually very popular in Mesopotamia, and I think it was discovered in 1920 by a British archaeologist, Sir Leonard Woolley. And I think present day, you can say, Iraq. And the game was actually found in a tomb along with other artifacts, and later it was reconstructed by the Acts. And basically what happens that it has like a rectangle and some series of the squares arranged in two rows. And each player has 7 game pieces that moved around the board according to the roll of dice or mark. It used to be said that this type of game was or have been played by people of all ages, social classes, including the members of the royal court. Now, there is another game called, this is Senet. Also, it is known as the game of passing. And this is also around, BC, 3000 years, and mainly about ancient Egypt. It used to be played. And basically what happens that it used to be like, consist of 30 squares in 3 different rows of 10. And the game pieces used to be sometimes of cones or disc, and you need to roll those and then stick to how many square they could move there, right? So very interesting. In the present time we play, this is the chess, and this game is actually originated or derived from the Indian strategy game that is called Chaturang, and this is before 7th century. And that moved to Persia, and in Persia it is known as Satranj, which is where the Satranj had many similarities with the game Chaturang, which is originated from India. And over the centuries, it is now chess has become one of the most popular and widely played games in the world, with millions of players from different walks of life they are like. And the game has inspired many countless books, movies, cultural works, many things. Now we can see that, I think if you remember this, Pong was the one of the earliest arcade or the table tennis based sports game which was originally started in or by Atari in 1972. So we are moving. You can see the history of games, how it is moving there. We use now the arcade, and then in 1978 onwards, we used to have like, arcade games like Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Microsoft Flight Simulator. So, and very interestingly, you will find that now generate $137.9 billion market per year, approx, like, the come from mobile games. So if you see the before the 21st century, technology was the part of our life, but in the 21st century we have become the part of technology. We start our day from mobile phone and we end our day with the mobile phone. I remember I got my first mobile smartphones, I will say that my smartphone when I was doing my phd in the first year in 2013 when I was in Taiwan. But now if I see the kids, like even they are in the elementary school, they are using the smartphones. The things and the dynamics are already changed. The penetration of technology, not only in the developed countries, even the developing countries like India. Now, India is the second largest market for the smartphones and second largest users for smartphones. So the penetration of technology is very high, specifically when these low cost smartphones are already penetrated in our country. And mobile games are one of the popular, specifically for whether it's young kids or the teenagers or above other ages also. And it was estimated that mobile gamers, they usually spend an estimated time of like around more than 3 hours online per day. So this is the the engagement of the mobile gamers when they are playing the game. So then we have virtual reality based games. So from mobile games, now we have also moved to the VR games, which is very popular nowadays, where immersive entertainment and education are being provided. If you see, this is one of the report that we have got, and uh, maximum mobile game downloads, specifically in the billions, I can say. So you will find that India is 15 billion, China, and it's increasing. And when I was very interested to see the market in India, and I was finding that day by day the gamers in India is also increasing. So even the developing country in India also game this kind of games are very, very popular. Now the question arises that how we can use this technology, whether it's a mobile phone or gamification, to for the education purpose, for the edutainment. I am saying that how education could be integrated with the entertainment, because all the students, maximum of the students, they have the smartphones, they play games, they find engaging these games. So how we can use this platform, this game-based learning technology, to leverage and use it for the learning purpose? So there are three key concepts are there when we are talking about game. So games, game-based learning, and gamification. So game are just for fun, may not be have very defined rules and objectives. But when we are talking about the game-based learning, they have defined learning objectives. However, gamification sometimes, some task you are providing, some form of award that you are giving. Many times, easy is gamification is usually easier and cheaper. But however, developing a game-based learning are usually very hard and expensive. Gamification, many times you will find that in Moodles we do some kind of game like features, we add some features, but that is not actual game based learning. When we are talking about the game based learning, it should be like content should be moved, it should have the story, it should have the scenes, and then it will composed of learning objective. Then it we can say it as a game based learning. So these three are totally, means there are differences between games, game based learning, and gamification. Now games, when we are talking about games for a purpose, those are known as serious games, right? So there could be K-12 games, where educational games for academic subjects. There could be corporate learning and market communication. So for diverse learning application, marketing communication. There are some games which are for the experiential learning, like we call it as a augmented reality or virtual reality platforms, where you can have some psychomotor skill development, those kind of things. Then there are some kind of social impact games, like about the pollution, about the greenhouse effect, about some healthcare. Those kind of things could be there. So those are included as a serious games. Now the question arises that how might we design motivation to use a game as a tool of impact in the sense, whether it's for the educational purpose, specifically whether for the educational purpose, how we can add the motivation, right? Let us understand this. For this, we need to understand the psychology of needs. Why do people actually play games, right? Why we play the games, why we like to play the games, right? There is one thing is a what is a need. Okay, so some we a need is basically, we call it as necessary for an organism, right? We need food to fulfill our hunger. We need clothes to get up warm. We need a good sleep. We need a thirst to water for the to calm down our thirst. So this is basically a need, right? Without these, if there is a deficiency, so we cannot survive, or maybe some dysfunction or death could be possible. But what is a want? What is a want is basically the desire, for something. Maybe if I am a faculty member, I am doing a good job, so I have a desire to get appreciation from my boss, from my students, from other organizations. So that's a basically recognition, reward. So a need, I can say it is an essential component. A want is basically about the aspirational component, right? So we need to understand and classify what is a need and what is a want. Now Maslow's has provided one very good hierarchy of needs. And if you go to the top bottom, so we have the physiological needs, where we are calling it as about very necessary, like food, shelter, clothes, all those kind of things, right? Then we have the safety. Then we have love and belonging, where we have social relationship with our friends, with our family members. Then we have in the top is the rewards and recognition. We look forward that when we are doing a very good job, we are looking for some appreciation there. And then at the end is in the top is the self actualization, when you have the self realization that yes, you have the skills, right? So the lower ones must be satisfied before individuals can attend to the higher work. So these are very, very important, otherwise we cannot go to this, right? Now what does this have to do with the sorry, with the when we are talking about the games? This is very important that we need to understand. When we are designing a game, as a game designer, we need to focus on the needs that are very deeply rooted in the player. What are their needs, right? And successful games considered different levels of needs of players, right? Like their resources, game experience, ease of navigation are very fundamental at lower end. Okay, that means if you are designing any kind of game, so these things must need to be integrated there, right? Because these are the lower base ends, right? Without this you cannot achieve the top ones. Then we have the multiplayer features like badges, high scores, level ups, positive feedback at the higher end. And self actualization could be achieved when they they get their inner goals. Or that can be alternatively, we can say that achievement of more meaningful goals in serious games. Now achievement of the makes the game addictive in nature also. When you achieve the higher ones, you get addicted to the game. So we need to be very careful also when we are designing the games, that it should not be very much addictive in nature. Otherwise, it may provide some challenges in front of us. Now, different needs changes uh, across different age groups, right? So maybe the young kids, they need to learn, they need to create, they need to have some kind of motor coordination. The older people, they basically need, because as they get old, so they need more social interaction, they need to improve their memory. Some young, like teenage or above, they need some kind of winning or recognition, adrenal, we call it as a. So based on the age groups, we need to design what type of the games will be suitable for that. Now, recognition, basically, we this is, people work for money, however, to the extra mile for recognition and praise, that is very important. This is a very human nature, that we need recognition in the society, in the workplace, in our home. So many times, this is very, very important when we are creating the games. Sometimes we miss this kind of important component when we are designing the games. Social relationships, of course, when you have the multiplayer games where you are working together to solve a problem, that that comes under the and caters about the social relationships. Self-realization and success. So there is a very famous quote by Franklin Roosevelt: "The only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today." So uh, the need for self-realization is where sometimes, is seldom fulfilled in real life. Sometimes if we get the self-realization, we will not work hard to achieve new goals. So sometimes it should be partially accepted there. So that is one of the very key aspects when we are talking about the games. Now there are different types of motivation in a game. So you can have the leaderboard, you can add the badges, you can have some unlocking more games, level ups, score, resources, experience points, text feedback, and animations. So those are very important components when we are designing the game, and that could help to create motivation when, specifically when we are talking about the educational games. Now the question arises that how we can use game as a tool of impact. When we are talking about the impact, it is basically for the educational impact, to improve the skills, right? Whether it's a learning skill, whether it's a motivation, whether some other different some kind of motor skills. So those kind of things could be improved using the games. But before that, we need to understand the analogy of a game. So I'm just giving very common example. Uh, when we have very young baby, so it is very difficult for a mother to feed the baby, right? So they usually they don't like to eat, right? So mother our mother, they play a very key role as a player. So a player is given a task in the form of a game which they are unknown of, right? Sometimes they but then what our mother will say, that instructions how to execute the task. So the mother will say that this spoon is, they will take it as an aeroplane, and then the mother will say that this aeroplane or helicopter wants to land in your mouth, and then the kid will open the mouth, and the spoon, from the spoon, the mother will feed the baby. So it's basically, the player happens to successfully complete the task. So basically this is actually is a magic place, right? So this magic circle is basically a state in which the player is bound by a make believe barrier created by the game. This is one of the very important concept that was proposed in 1938 by two great game designers, Johan and Homo. So this is very important. We need to understand the game parts. So when we have three very important things. One is player, one is game, and another one is the play, right? So until unless there will be interaction between these, among these three, we will not have a successful game execution. Now there are very important essence of game, which is talking about the mechanics, game mechanics, and storytelling. Until unless you have a good storytelling in your game, it is very difficult to get it successful or to be get it accepted, specifically by the young kids, right? Until unless we have good characters, which is, they are very relevant to their age group, so they will not be happy to go that. Until unless we have a good label design, it is very difficult. If we normally, what happens sometimes, you will find many games that in the very early stage or early labels, the games become very complex. And as a human, we never want to be get failed. We never like failure in our life, right? So even level 1 and level 2, if you are not able to success, so what will you do? You will simply quit the game, right? So we need to have this, keep in mind how we can have a good mechanics and storytelling in our games when we are talking about. Now, there are different type of vocabulary of the games which are very important. We need to understand. So there should be story. There should be some specific learning goals. There should be some characters like heroes, maybe enemies, maybe there should be specified labels, competition, challenges, badges, leaderboards, and rewards. So these all compose very common and very important vocabularies that we are using in the form of, whether it's a normal games or when we are talking about the game based learning specifically. One you see, this is one very interesting example. The Ford, they have the glass, and then if you are, basically what they are teaching, that if you are driving efficiently, so you are actually protecting the environment, right? So the are if your efficiency decreases, so these leaves and it will fall down, and if you are more efficiently, if you are driving, so more leaves will. So that's a kind of, a very important message is being given through this game. And it is also has some kind of target goals, that how people can drive efficiently, so that they can protect the environment. This is another very interesting, is an app, like, we are many times we are very distracted with the messages when we are working. So mobile phones, they sometimes of messages it will come, and then we will distracted, and again we will start watching some videos or some other stuffs. So they have developed that, whenever you want to focus on your work, so plant a tree, and in the following type it will grow when you are working. And it will be when you leave this app, sometimes, if you're distracting and you're watching something else, so basically it will, there will be, the deplantation will be there, and you are not protecting the environment. So it's a kind of social message that you are getting, and it is also helping you to concentrate on your work. So this is one another very interesting type of gamification, which with some kind of educational motive is there. Now there are different elements of a game, as I mentioned there. So there are player elements are there are game elements are there, and there are play elements are there. Now about when we are talking about the player elements, so you can see that there are different types of player elements. There are positive elements, there are negative elements. Here, if we say the play elements, there are passive elements, there are active elements. When we are talking about the game elements, there are tangible elements, there are intangible elements. See, when we are having or when we are playing the game, these all includes, right? And there will be situation when we fail, so we would like to quit, or we would not like to go ahead with the game. But sometimes it is also important to be failure, to get a lesson and to learn the new skill. So it is very important how you are designing the game, so that it can be covered. I'm just giving one example. So I feel frustrated by losing to our enemies, right? So this is very negative side that is going on when I'm designing a game. When someone is failed and frustrated and losing, and then enemies. Now how I design a game which will motivate the player even if he's losing. So I can do like this, like, if he loses to the enemy, so it will become, the player will become the curious that, why I have lost. I need to find out the reason, right? I need to improve my skills. So that becomes, that is making him or her curious to understand. And again, they are mastering the skills and then passing the label, and then that is a euphoria time for that. So this is very important when we are designing, specifically when we are designing the educational games. In educational games, there is a balance between the entertainment and education. Normally, the other games, whether it's a PUBG or other GTA, those games are basically for the entertainment purpose. So a lot of adrenaline is there, a lot of things are there which is making them motivation. But for educational games, we also need to integrate the education part also. So even, how we can continue, even they are losing, so how we can make them more curious, and they learn the skills and master the skills to achieve the target learning objectives. So, positive to negative. So there are different player elements like challenge, relaxation, nurture, sensation, expression. Those are very important player elements that need to be integrated in the game when we are talking. Now, the big idea. So I think I am a very great fan of Toru Iwatani. I think he's one of the greatest game designer, I believe. And uh, we are in Japan, and he's from Japan. So I must mention about him. And he, he I think you know about this game, about the Pac-Man, and I just want to give one a very interesting story behind the Pac-Man. So before Pac-Man, so basically the arcades, uh, you know, um, are dominated by male players, because those all arcade games used to be, action games, some adrenaline games, something like that. So Tori Watani was actually contacted, and he was given a task that, you should develop a game where we can also attract females or girls, because then the revenue will increase, right? And Toru Iwatani is actually very a shy person and something like that. And um, 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 he was given this task also, and then he got an opportunity for dating a girl. Okay, and then he was he was very confused or something like that. He was thinking that from which type of restaurant he should take when he was going for dating, and he was not getting an idea. And then what happened that then he thought that, okay, let me get let my having the dating in get pizza restaurant. And then he was discussing with a girl he was dating, that, what type of games you are liking, and why you are like, and then what should be integrated, how to and the girl, she is very, the girls, they basically like the games which are very peaceful in nature, which is. And from the pizza, he got the idea of the Pac-Man. If you slice it out, and then you will find that, the Pac-Man is just like that. So that's a very interesting story behind the Pac-Man. And then he developed a game which, which will save the world from weapons and evil people. And you are also what type of kind of game, you are also learning some kind of skills there. And then the single player game. So he started designing the whole game. And I think every player who plays video games, or they have played this Pac-Man. And if someone has not played the Pac-Man, I will suggest and advise that please play this game. So it's a very interesting game, and still it is many players they play, and I also play this Pac-Man game. So this is another the story that I want to share about him, because he's a Japanese game designer. Now, I'm just giving one or two examples of the work that we are doing here. So we develop a game called Code AR. Is basically an augmented reality based game to teach programming. So we we know that computational thinking is one of the key concepts which is being integrated in different national curriculum. In fact, in India also we have NEP, National Education Policy 2020, where computational thinking is one of the key component that is being integrated in our school curriculum, and is basically talking about problem solving, designing systems, and understanding human behavior. And there are four cornerstones of computational thinking, which is decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, and algorithms. And sorry, as we know that artificial intelligence, machine learning, in the next 10 years, we have the industry 4.0, and in the next 10 years, it is very important not only for the engineering students, but non-engineering students also need to learn the skills of programming, because it is being applicable in different fields, not only for the science and engineering. And India also, we are implementing this computational thinking concept in our school curriculum, and coding part is one of the part of computational thinking. So when we are talking about the programming, teaching programming, so we are also exposing the students to the computational thinking, which use some concepts like abstraction and decomposition when we are talking about the computer science concepts. So we develop a game where very basic functions like for loop, while loop, how we can motivate the students for the coding. Our purpose is not that we are not saying that by playing this game that everyone will know about the computer programming. We just want to motivate the students, whether they are non-engineering or or young kids, to move towards to learn the coding, because it's basically the logical thinking happens there. So we use also GLA framework, which is the game learning analytics framework, where we can have the real time feedback to the during the practice session. General feedback we can provide the student. We can provide the hints when they face any issues during the labels when they are playing the games. And we also store the data to analyze and get the idea. uh, we have 12 labels where the decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, algorithms. So all the labels, they are marked with different CT skills are there when they are crossing those labels. This is the basic, the information about the play cards. So we have a character called Bunny. It's a rabbit, and then you need to arrange the cards. And when you are arranging the correct cards, so the bunny will move, and the bunny will get the carrots, and then you can move to the next level. So let me just demonstrate uh, the game Code AR. This is one augmented reality based game, which is marker based game. So here, when you are arranging the cards, so we added augmented reality because it is making more attractive and interactive. So our game also won in US. It won the innovation award in the student category by SGS Challenge. So we thought to do some experiments. So we did one experiment in Taiwan with university students in the first year. uh, basically we want to do the usability testing, and uh, we also want to see that how code AR can effectively, some basic programming skills, does it really help the students. Also we categorize, it's a single group experiment, so we have students, so we did some pre-test to understand their programming skills. So 40% of the top, we considered them high prior programming skills they have, and lower 40% is the low prior programming skills we considered the group. So we found that the SUS scale we used and usability is 58.95, which is approximately average, is good. And then we also found that before using this game and after using this game, there was improvement. Although the sample size is not very big, 27, but we found that there was improvement in their some basic programming skills. We also very interesting thing is that we found that in the pre-test and post-test. So although there was no improvement in pre-test and post-test for the high prior programming skill group, but the students who had low programming skills, so after playing this game, there was improvement in their programming skills. So that study is also published in Computers and Graphics there. This is another, we get a lot of analytics also, that for each level we can understand that how many players they play, how much time, average time they take to. So we also got the idea from this, average completion time, and from which level maximum students they drop out. So this is also giving one idea that when we are designing the game, so which if suppose this drop comes here in the very early level, so that means there are some faults or see issues in our game design. If because maximum people, if they drop here, it's not a good sign of a good game. But you can see that here maximum people they drop in level 12, because these are complex, not everyone can qualify these levels. So then we also want to understand the strategies in solving the computational. So this is one ongoing project that we are doing in India. So we have two groups, where experimental group is using the code AR, and control group some traditional methods and materials they are using for understanding the computational thinking. This is basically we are also using the eye tracking to collect their position of their eye metrics data to see their eye gauge, and understand that how they are looking at the game and other stuffs they are playing and solving the problem. We do some studies here. So basically, in the post-test, they perform the experimental group, they perform better as compared to the traditional group. We are very much interested to understand their strategies. Now you see, this is one iterative strategy where uh, uh, they in the same label, these are the dots are basically the stages, and these arcs you can see that they are trying the labels multiple times, or they are going, this one is showing that they are going back to this, and this red one is showing actually they are taking the hints. Okay. So because in the game, if you are stuck, so you can ask the system for the hints also. So these are some of the examples of iterative strategy. This is one sorry, deliberate strategy, where for each label you are asking for the hints. Okay, this is basically the deliberate strategy. And this is basically exploratory strategy, where they don't ask any type of hints. Basically they are just playing and repeating, and again they are playing and repeating, and then they qualify. So there are three types of strategies that we have got when the students were playing the game. And we found that maximum people they they use the iterative strategies, where they are trying their best, and when they are facing very difficult, then only they are getting for the hints. They are not every time, not the students are going for the hints. So this is another thing. And then we got some rating for the apps to understand the engagement, where 64% students they feel that it is an engaging game. This is one very last study that I will just take another 2 minutes to say. And It's about the tune mass dampers. Actually, in IIT, we have the structural engineering, and I was in Taiwan for 3 years, and I feel that Taipei 101 is one of the fascinating engineering at present, and it used to be second tallest building in the world. And they in Taipei 101 they have the tune mass damper. Usually, tune mass damper is basically harmonic absorbers and seismic dampers. So in IIT, we need to learn about these things. And normally, what happens that traditionally we are just writing the equation and some basic simulation, but I want to develop. I cannot take all the students to visit Taipei and have the experience of Taipei 101, but I want to bring that authentic experience using the virtual reality, and they making it a gamification so that they can understand the physics behind that. So usually in tall buildings like Burj Khalifa or others, you will find that tune mass dampers are there. But in Taiwan, in Taipei 101, that's a pendulum tune mass damper. It is much more, advantageous as conventional TMD. And basically it's a swaying of you can find that this is basically the if you go to the Taipei 101 on also is the swaying of PTMD, which prevents the and Taipei is basically prone to typhoon and earthquake also. And this marvelous architecture, if you see the engineering, is still sustaining in a very good way because of the PTMD that they. So we want to give the idea of the working PTMD for the students. So so basic so what we did, so we added some features where the student will have the engagement interaction. We added some PTMD parameters where they need to regulate mass, rope length, and rope steepness when there is earthquake or when there is a typhoon. And if they are successfully doing, the building will sustain, otherwise the building will fall. So they have the disaster parameters what we have included, like earthquake, where we have the Richter scale and distance, and then we have the typhoon wind velocity is there. Uh, we use the physics or actual physics involved in the movement of PTMD in the games. So I'm just showing you one demonstration. It is also one ongoing project that we are doing here. So they are going through all the parameters here, and they need to score. So then they are changing. Here we are not mention the numerical value, but based on that they do the sliding. And so how long it can sustain, so it will decide your scores, the time, and then the score is given here, and then the score is 100. So basically this type of we are developing, it is ongoing process is going on, and we are adding more gamification here. The player needs to adjust the mass, temper, steepness, so that withstand some kind of disaster. So we are developing different complex levels, also adding more physics and engineering here. So these are some of the examples that I have shown you, that how game-based learning could help to improve some of the very important skills or learning objectives or learning purposes. Now we have some very important challenges also when we are designing specifically the game-based learning. Specifically, balancing fun and learning is one of the many games. If you find in Google Play Store or in Apple Store, you will find that fun is more and learning is less. So it is very important to balance both things. Second part is that how we can ensure accessibility and inclusivity. When we are talking about the inclusive and accessible, so we have a wider, then we can have a wider audience, like people with disabilities, such as visual impairments or mobility issues. How we can do some kind of game which is accessible. Then we have cultural sensitives also, backgrounds, how we can do, include those things also, means some of the important concepts which will cater different cultures and backgrounds. Another thing is that there are many misconceptions about game based learning, specifically when we are talking with the parents also. They think that why my kid will play the game, because it's not good, right? So how we can overcome this kind of resistance about the game based learning concept. So that we need to think. And fair and transparent. Transparency is very important when we are talking about um, uh, the games. It is sometimes addictive also. How we can uh, design a game which is not promoting the addictive behavior or some kind of um, uh, we can make some game which are fair, safe, and ethical in nature. And very important is that promote responsible gaming, because when we are this type of games are being played by the players, a huge data is there. So data privacy is one of the another concern and challenge is there when we are talking about the game based learning. So that's all from my side, and if you have any questions, so please tell me.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kaushal Kumar, for your wonderful sharing. I think now it's time for Q&A. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask now. Any question? Question?
Thank you very much for your great presentation about gamification and game design, maybe for the game learning with the learning with game, education with the gaming. And I have a question about the last slides and the challenges, future challenges. The third one, what is the specific resistance for the game, the gamification and the learning with game?
Yes. So specifically, I'm talking about the resistance of the parents. When the parents, they see the students are using the mobile phone to play the games, so they think that it is not good for, specifically in the Asian culture. We have so, but they don't understand that when we're talking about that, when you're playing this type of game-based learning, the students are learning also through these games. But it's very difficult to convince the parents that through game-based learning also they are learning something. So that I'm saying that resistance is still there in society. Still, people are not very much aware of the positive effects of game-based learning.
So any other question?
Thanks for the engaging talk. My question is, you talked about motivation. I want to know your thoughts on the learner agency in game-based learning.
Yeah, as I mentioned about the learner agency, so I have classified the different age groups, right? When we are talking about, so when we are designing the games, we first need to understand their needs, their curriculum, and their resources also. So not all learners, they what type of learners we are looking after, what their culture is there. Maybe in India the learners culture is different from US culture. So this is also, culture is also one of the key factor when we are designing the games. So that learner agency, of course, is one of the one very important element that we need to consider. So I mentioned about the three elements: the player element, game element, and play element. So when we are talking about the player element, we are adding that learner as learner agency.
Yeah, so I have a question. So in your opinion, what's the difference between learner agency in game-based learning and conventional learning?
Conventional learning and learner agency in
I
game-based
mean
learning.
conventional learning in classroom and the game-based learning. We all talk about learning agency. So when we talk about learning agency in game-based learning, in your opinion, do you consider more elements for this kind of agency?
I believe that all the elements are very, very important, and there should be a balance between when we are designing the game. And we are just gamifying the conventional mode. We are not removing the agencies from there. So whether your player, whether it's a learning, whether it's a overall development, all those need to be included in that as in the conventional. We are just changing the mode, not the process. Our ultimate goal is that how we can make the learner more engaging, because as they are using these resources already, so that is the only target. We are not removing anyone from their role.
Okay, thank you. So, other question?
Yeah, Professor, that I have a question that I read from your slides that people have an instinct to work together. Does that mean multiplayer playing mode or game elements such as leaderboard that encourages collaboration or team playing should be considered as a core component for each gamification design practices or game-based learning, or individual differences should be tailored? For example, some students, they may not enjoy team playing that much.
Yes.
I'd like to know your perspective on that.
Yes, I think it's a great idea that or the question that you have asked. Yes, game-based learning, when we are talking about, not every game is suitable for everyone. Okay, that is very clear. Second thing is that collaboration is one of 21st century skill that we must need to promote, because it's nowadays it's not like you are doing individual work and you will progress. So collaboration, that's why many multiplayer games are coming, which is helping the students to learn about or to collaborate with other members to achieve one target. I think this is very, very important, and time even in the educational games also. Now we are developing like this type of one game that we are developing. We are also adding that how multiplayers or in people from different engineering background, whether it's mechanical engineering or civil engineering, they work together to solve a problem. So that's a kind of multiplayer game concept also we are adding in the educational games also.
Thank you.
Okay, we have less the question due to the time limitation.
Hi, Professor. That was an impressive talk. So you have used two types of, you should display two types of gaming. One is AR-based gaming and another one is VR-based gaming. So this question is related to implication. So do you have any suggestion on how to use VR-based gaming on a large scale ability to address or to use it for mass number of students?
Okay. Yeah, so I think this is very important to understand that when we are talking about augmented reality and virtual reality, scalability is a question, big question mark on virtual reality, because it takes a lot of cost to set up one virtual reality, right? But for augmented reality, scalability is high because you just need a smartphone. And now we are developing the web-based AR also, where you don't need to install the application in your mobile phone. So you don't need high RAM for your mobile phone. But anyhow, virtual reality, the scalability is still questionable because of the cost, and not only for the cost of the device, but also the cost of the development. I will suggest that specifically in developing countries like India, Bangladesh, we are more looking for the augmented reality based solutions, because this is much more achievable, because now the students, they have the smartphones and they can use these kind of applications.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thank you. I think because of time, we have to end this session now. So thanks for your participation, and thanks Dr. KK again. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor
you.
Wu. And please
Thank you.
accept my apologies again. Thank you very much.